r/TrueOutOfMyChest. I ignored my husband so much that he went away without telling me. Story 1. I, Carla, 30, am 6 months pregnant with mine and my husband's, Harry, 31, first child. During this pregnancy, I've been very exhausted every day and would usually come home from work and go to bed an hour later, then wake up at midnight and reheat what Harry had made us for dinner. For context, I've been part of a huge work project that's been going on for months, and I've been extremely overworked. On top of this, my husband doesn't have a job at this moment and isn't looking for one unless I remind him. I've been working overtime to get as much money as I can before maternity leave. Our anniversary was on the 6th of August, and I'd asked him if we could have a romantic dinner at home and then snuggle up to watch TV under a warm blanket. I thought it was a wonderful idea since I was too tired to go out and because I knew that Harry was doing most, if not all, of the household chores. However, he seemed a little annoyed when he agreed, but I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Harry seemed quite cold towards me and barely looked me in the eyes. Once I got home from work, he wasn't there, but that was normal since he could have been out with friends or at an interview, and so I went to sleep. I woke up at 11 that night to see that I was still alone in the house, so I checked my phone. I had about 8 missed calls from Harry and a long text. I'm summarizing, but the text read, "I understand how tired you are because of this pregnancy and you having to work extra hours most days, but I'm over being ignored every day and having a 5-minute conversation with you every so often. You expect me to do all the housework and plan our boring anniversary alone. I'm really annoyed, so I'm staying at a friend's tonight. Text me when you see this." Of course, I called him and texted him about being sorry and wanting to talk, but I never got an answer. In the morning, I called my boss about having a day off and spent most of it waiting for Harry and planning my apology. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a card saying that he loves me but needs a few days away from me to figure out what he's going to say and do. Then those days became a week. This part happened on the 13th, 8 days later. I messaged him every day. He would constantly say that he needed one more day or just another night at his friend's house to figure this all out, but on the 13th, I decided to go to the friend's home he was staying at to confront him. So I drove over, nearly 30 minutes away, and banged on the door so hard that I could hear it echo from inside. By this point, I realized that I should have put more effort into our relationship, but he also should have talked to me about this instead of running away. Harry's friend came to the door and was confused but pleased to see me. He seemed a little on edge as I talked to him and had to break the silence every so often with comments about my pregnancy and how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. Finally, we stopped talking and I practically demanded to see Harry, saying that I wanted to apologize but also explain how childish he was by hiding from me. The thing that I found out absolutely hilarious, but actually not at all, was that his friend said that Harry wasn't there and had left for Ireland on the 9th. Ireland. I'm from the UK, so Ireland isn't as far as people think it is since I'm not American, but it still is, so far. To say I was absolutely beyond furious and extremely confused would be such an understatement. His friend invited me in and sat me down to talk. Turns out that Harry had told his friend of our problems and had come up with the solution of going on a holiday as a couple to sort everything out and learn to love each other again, in Harry's words. So, of course, his friend thought it was a lovely idea and helped him to book the flight on the evening of the 5th, the first time he had stayed at his friend's house. Since it was a last-minute booking, Harry's friend had stayed up with him for quite a while before they found a flight who was taking a few more passengers due to canceled tickets. Since Harry wasn't working, some of you might wonder where he got the money from to buy the tickets. Well, he has a bank account with his money from when he worked as a teenager and a little into his 20s before we met. And a few years ago, we agreed not to touch that money and add to it every so often. It was a backup savings account, so I'm assuming that he took the money from there since it wasn't from the joint account. His friend then explained how he'd been confused when I arrived at the door, but didn't want to say anything about the holiday in case it had ended early due to us arguing. Harry's return ticket is booked for the 20th of August. I'm just so angry and quite heartbroken, to be completely honest. I messaged him the moment his friend had finished talking, and Harry only responded several hours later with nothing more than, "I had to figure things out, sorry." So I spent some time alone and tried to figure out what I was going to do or say when he got home. After a couple of days that I've had a longer time to think, I decided I won't be doing anything until our talk, but I definitely won't be staying in my home with him after what happened. I can't trust him not to run away again. I've also gained back some self-respect and realized he was being an a-hole. I talked to my mom and she's happy for me to move in with her after I got to talk with Harry, and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. A lot of questions have been answered since Harry came home yesterday evening. The main one being that he did use the second ticket, but for his sister. For the last few days, Harry's friend has been living with me and helping me through this. One was that he scheduled a couples and individual counselor for Harry and I. I've also been calling my mom every day since the 13th, and with a one counseling session, Harry's friend and my mom all giving me the same advice, I scheduled an early maternity leave with a slight bonus to each paycheck because of all my overtime and unpaid help. I officially leave work in 4 days. Back to yesterday, Harry's friend went to pick Harry up and sent me photos of who he was with as reassurance that it was his sister, Tiff, not her real name. When they arrived, I'd prepared dinner and cleared the downstairs of our home so that we could have a civilized conversation without hunger or distractions to stop us. Harry looked extremely tired and he seemed to be on the verge of crying the moment I opened the door to them all. I was incredibly patient for the sole reason of being able to get through this discussion in one piece. And so when Harry wouldn't speak, I let Tiff explain why she had gone with him. Tiff is a lovely lady who helped me through the few months before my pregnancy. However, Harry didn't stay in close contact with her and I lost touch when the work project started. Because of this, she had no clue about anything going on until Harry called her and said that he had a spare ticket to Ireland. At first, she was reluctant since she knew that I was pregnant, and so she tried to ask why he would leave and if I was with someone who could care for me. Eventually, Harry snapped and told her the real reason of why he was going away, and so she joined him to make sure that he knew it was wrong, but also to help him through all the emotions that he was feeling. She was the reason that Harry came back to me. If she hadn't gone with him, then Harry admitted that he might have moved to central London or a small village in the countryside to hide from all of this. It took everything in me not to cry when she admitted that, and I could clearly see the shame on Harry's face. I'm not going to recite everything word for word, so I'll quickly clear up some things. Number one, Harry did use the backup savings account like I thought to pay for the tickets. Number two, the reason that Harry's friend didn't see who the other ticket was for was because once they had found the tickets, Harry's friend went to bed. Number three, Tiff was by Harry's side the entire holiday in Ireland and confirmed without a doubt that this wasn't to find a fling. They spent most of the days in the cheapest hotel room possible in silence before Harry started talking about everything. 4. When we met and married, Harry was a loving, hard-working, employed man whose only dream was to have a wonderful family, and then retire to one of those cute stone villages in the south of England. After an hour, Harry finally spoke up. Tiff and Harry's friend went into the living room, but I never realized how strange it would feel to be with Harry again. He confessed that he'd stopped loving me a month into my pregnancy. It wasn't to do with the fact that I was sick all the time, dirty as a mole, or wouldn't stop talking about the baby. He just didn't have a reason. Since he couldn't think of why he stopped loving me, he assumed that the love would come back in no time, that maybe it was just some delusion caused by the stress of a baby on the way. Over time, that love didn't come back and he started feeling incredibly guilty and alone in it all, which is when he got fired from his job. He told me it was because of his work performance was belittled by the new management, but it was really because he was too trapped in his feelings to think of anything but how much he still didn't love me. Then he never tried to get a job because sitting at home without me, since I had to work more, was much better than sitting at work and possibly getting fired again. He came to love how he had alone time until the moment that he felt alone. That was when he refused to work just so he wouldn't have to see me. He wanted to sit and wait and see how long it would be before I came to him. The trip was to test the waters. It was to see if life would be better without me. He still hasn't decided. In his whole explanation, he kept emphasizing how much he didn't love me and said it like I was a child who needed to hear something 1,000 times just to understand it. He never apologized. In a rough way, I was shocked, distraught. If you have a word to describe that awful emotion, then I felt it. I cried, I shouted, I cried again, and we sat in silence until I could talk. Then I told him how I could never trust him again. How could I possibly trust him not to walk out on me or the baby? How could I trust him to tell me these things or explain his emotions or to see the story from both sides? How could I possibly work myself dry again for an unloving husband? And so I made the decision for him. We would go to couples counseling, not to be a better couple, but just to understand each other and learn to communicate properly while together and to other people. No matter what, our lives would always involve each other because of the marriage and the baby, so we need to be able to talk. I moved into my mom's home and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. My mom is helping me to make the spare room into a nursery and is being the most amazing, supportive, incredible mom anybody could be. Tiff and I are going to stay closer in contact, and Harry's ex-friend said that he can be the appointment driver and is going to be my second emergency contact. As for when I'm in labor, my mom will be with me, and Tiff and Harry's ex-friend will be waiting to meet the baby and to stop Harry from even seeing the delivery room. Finally, I made it clear to Harry that we will separate for now, but will divorce or remain separated after the baby is born. I will make sure that he is not mentioned in my emergency contacts. He can't be trusted to show up or even where he says he is. This story just took an unexpected turn that has left me, and I'm sure you guys as well, scratching your heads with bewilderment. I mean, I just can't imagine what this lady has gone through. She's 6 months pregnant, exhausted from work, pulling overtime to save as much as she can in preparation for the baby, and then coming home every day to a husband who seems to be missing in action. I can't say that I can relate, but I sure feel for her. Let's pull out some facts here because I'm no expert on the subject. When a woman is pregnant, they get sick because of the changes in their body with a growing human inside of them. Not only that, their hormones would be on hyperdrive, so they are emotional at times. And this lady is juggling being pregnant and her high-stress job, and where's her husband? Well, it seems like he was taking a leisurely stroll in the land of unemployment. So okay, we are in the modern times, and the family dynamics are varying depending on what works for a couple. Gone are the days that men are expected to toil away and bring home the bacon while women are at home taking care of the house and the children. And in this story, it seems like the wife, Carla, was okay with taking on the responsibility of making a living while Harry took care of her needs. On the surface, it seems he was doing his job until he wasn't and went MIA on her on their anniversary, of all days. Saying that I'm baffled would be an understatement. Props to him, though, for not disappearing into thin air and instead informs the wife what he was going through. In my books, that was still a good thing, because he was being considerate of his wife's condition and the probability that she'd worry and it'll affect the baby. Good job, dude. Well, until his whole ruse was discovered not only by his very pregnant wife, but also by his friend who extended a helping hand, not to mention a couch when he needed it. That wasn't cool. Sure, he probably felt like he was faced with a conundrum to protect his wife's feelings by lying to her, or to lie to her in order to protect her feelings. Even I would find it hard to come to the right decision, but the thing in this case is he didn't lie to just his wife, but to his friend as well. Out of shame? Was it guilt? Only he knows. Now, about that Ireland trip, he did one good thing there, and that was to get his sister involved. Maybe he thought of his sister as someone who would be able to understand what he's going through and not jump to judgments about it. And the sister, Tiff, turns out to be the voice of reason in this story. She joined Harry on his Irish adventure to make sure he doesn't do something utterly foolish. And then the much-anticipated face-off arrives and Harry drops a bombshell. He confessed that he stopped loving his wife since she got pregnant. Whoa. Alright, so let me get this straight. Instead of addressing his feelings like a responsible adult, he chose to ghost his pregnant wife and head for greener pastures? Of course, any wife, more so a very pregnant one, would feel devastated, so that outburst was beyond justified. Besides, folks, releasing your emotions instead of bottling it up is good for anyone's health. Keeping everything in, all your anger, frustrations, hurt, and other negative emotions might eventually affect your mental health. And definitely kudos to Carla for not allowing herself to be in limbo waiting for Harry to get his act together and come back to her because, let's be honest, we all know that's never going to happen. Folks, if you're ever in a similar situation, always remember that your actions have consequences. It may also affect others around you. Just try to be mindful of your actions. Also, communication is key. When love is on the rocks, don't skedaddle and leave others high and dry. Talk it out, seek help. Remember that relationships require effort from both sides. I am hoping that in the end, both Carla and Harry find the happiness that they both deserve.
Psst. Let's be honest. Does your room look dull as Yeah, well, most do. Luckily, I just launched Rufus Rugs. Custom, hand-tufted rugs. And no, this isn't some BS dropshipping company. We have a warehouse in Canada where me and my friends hand-tuft every single rug. So if you're looking to bring your room to life with some awesome anime rugs, or literally anything you can think of, we can get it done for you. From Rick and Morty to The Last Airbender, we've got you covered. Hit the link in the description to get a free quote.
Story 2. A stranger waited for us to walk in front of her car before ending it all. We thought it was a firecracker until she started screaming to call 911. I had to cover the gaping with my jacket until the EMTs arrived. She had left a 3-page note on the dashboard of her car. The police questioned us for hours before we were allowed to leave. Police said I saved her life. My wife says I'm a hero. But I don't feel like a hero. In fact, I'm angry. There's no way that woman didn't see us before pulling the trigger. She knew, at the very least, that two strangers would be forced to watch her take her own life. She victimized us. My wife feels incredibly guilty, unsafe, and jumpy. I trust people less. My heart stops at the slightest popping sound or the faintest smell of sulfur. I go to that parking lot because that's where our post office is and irrationally think, who's going to shit themselves in front of me this time? Both my wife and I are struggling with our obsessive-compulsive disorder, and I know it's petty, but that was my favorite jacket, and now it's in some medical waste incinerator. I can't even get a replacement because I know it will remind us of her. I wish I had kept walking. I am certainly less likely to intervene the next time I see an emergency unfold. I want to believe that the attempt was genuine and she simply experienced instant regret, but too many details indicate it was a calculated ploy for some kind of validation. At best, I feel thankful that I don't have anyone in my life who would do something so selfish. I feel pity for the people who know her who were addressed in her 3-page letter. At worst, I feel guilty for thinking anything bad about someone clearly so desperate. But she didn't just hurt herself, she hurt everyone involved, including 2 people just trying to get dinner. After a while, I had enough time to think about what happened. I know that I am still resentful, but I don't regret my actions. I might hesitate the next time I hear a cry for help, but I don't think I could ever ignore something like that. I will try to move on, and I hope she's getting the help that she needs. In a world where everything seems boring and predictable, the universe will usually throw you a curveball that will make you rethink your own sense of humanity. Just like in this story, the couple who was just quietly going for a leisurely stroll on the way to their much-deserved quiet date was suddenly thrown into a chaotic and emotionally charged life-and-death situation that left an indelible mark in their lives. The couple didn't ask to be witnesses to a scene that seems to be straight out of a suspenseful thriller. A stranger in her car, a gunshot that shatters the tranquility of the night, and screams for help that can pierce through anyone's soul. When life and death situations like these arise, I don't think anyone would stop to think twice about what to do. You just spring into action and do what you think is morally right and what is socially acceptable behavior, all while the world around you seems to blur in disbelief. Sure, everybody will think of you as a hero, but then the reality of your own personal situation sinks in. While everybody is hailing your heroic action, throwing you parties and all that jazz, your own emotions are a turbulent mix of anger and frustration because of the after effects of that evening. And it is understandable, being witness to such a violent act will leave a major trauma even for the most hardened individual. Just like the dude in this story, time will come when you will question your own actions, whether to get involved and suffer emotional damage in the aftermath, or stay out of it and feel the burden of guilt that someone could have been saved if you had just intervened. Again, in this case, for this guy. Situations like that can leave you questioning your trust in humanity, your own safety, and the fabric of your very being. But really, what defines a hero? Is it someone who leaps into action without hesitation, selflessly saving a life? Or is it the person who, despite their anger and newfound fear, still holds on to their compassion and empathy? But beneath the anger and the frustration, this dude can't help but desperately hope that the actions of the woman were genuine, and that she experienced a moment of profound regret, even though the evidence suggests that it was a calculated crime for validation, an act that has left the dude and his wife struggling to come to terms with what has happened. Folks, in these situations, such actions will not only hurt the person involved, but also victimize those who were unwittingly drawn into the tragedy, the witnesses, and the people who will be left behind. They'll carry the burden of guilt that if they had paid more attention, listened more, done something more, etc., the person involved wouldn't have arrived at such a desperation that drove them to unimaginable acts. At the end, this dude knows that he'll be forever changed by the events of that fateful day. He might hesitate the next time he hears a cry for help, but he knows deep down that he just can't ignore it. He is a hero, not because he wears a cape, but because he still has the strength to face the world's darkness and emerge with his humanity intact. As he struggles to move forward, he can only hope that the woman who caused this upheaval is receiving the assistance she actually finally really needs. Hey, so if you enjoy these stories, you won't want to miss r/ProRevenge. Use my family for cheap labor, then kick them out. That's going to cost you. Story number 2 is epic. Also, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out, and it also keeps you in the loop about our upcoming videos. We'll see you at the next one.